Hello, my name is Christopher Houston, and today I want to talk to you about personal growth. I've been passionate about personal growth for the past 20 years. You see, a friend of mine gave me a book about 25 years ago, and the book was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book got me on my personal, I guess if you want to call it, journey into personal growth. I consider myself a leader, and there are two questions that any leader should ask themselves. Number one, what am I doing to develop myself? And number two, what am I doing to develop others? When I first started on my growth journey, I started thinking of only myself. I know. You got to think about other people also. And later on, I tried my best to help as many people as I could with their personal growth. When I found this book, The 15 Laws of Growth, I saw and I read the book, and it looks like I have been living a lot of the laws already. And the ones that I didn't know, or the ones that I hadn't heard about, I immediately started working on those laws. This book will teach you how to develop your own growth plan. Now, how many of us have a growth plan or have even been shown how to create one? The book will also teach you how to get on a lifelong plan of growth that will last a lifetime. The book will help you understand that personal growth just does not stop. Now let's talk about the first law, the law of intentionality. The law of intentionality states growth doesn't just happen. We have to grow on purpose. As I said before, a good friend of mine, his name's Gerald Bridges, he gave me the book, or actually he told me to go get the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That book led me to another book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Read that book and it led me to another book, Think and Grow Rich. Read that book and it led me to the book called The Secret. Several books later, because I was on this journey of trying to better myself, several books later led me to a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And subsequently, after reading that book and several others, it led me to this book, The 15 Laws of Growth. Growth is not an automatic process. That's why the law of intentionality is so important. No one grows by accident. There's a difference between getting older and getting better. You see, we can get older just year by year, no matter what happens. But if you want to get better, you have to have some type of growth plan. James Allen was quoted as saying, people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. Therefore, they remain bound, which means that they just stay the same. The same things happen to them over and over again. I'm sure you know people that will tell you all of their problems. They'll spend hours on the phone with you. And if you try to give them some solutions, they don't want to hear it. If you say, let me talk to you about growing yourself, they don't want to hear that. What they want to do is they just want you to listen to them vent. And here's the thing, this book or this teaching that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to give this teaching on this week. It's going to be my first time teaching out of this book. And the book talks about growth gaps. And that is gaps that you may not be aware of. And these growth gaps may be stopping some of you or someone you know from doing some type of growth plan. So let's get into it. There's about 8 of these gaps, and I'm going to briefly touch on each one. The first one is the assumption gap. I assume I will automatically grow. Most of us assume that if we go to work, we do what we're supposed to do, and we get a good evaluation every year, we think that that means you're growing. Most people accept their lives. They don't lead their lives. Don't assume you will automatically grow. You have to do something to grow. The second gap that you may not know about is the knowledge gap. That's when you say, I don't know how to grow. You see, that's where I was in the beginning. I spent 20 years in the military and I thought I had grown pretty much. But once I got out of the military, I started to understand that I needed to continue to grow. A lot of people don't know how to grow. We have our formal education, and that's from kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade, and some of us go to college. But that's just one part of it. Most people don't know what to do or how to create their personal plans. I joke with my daughter all the time. If you ask my daughter right now, she's in the 9th grade, what's more important than formal education? She'll tell you, personal development. I didn't start on my own growth plan until I was about 36 years old. So remember, it's never too late to start. Remember, Rich Dad, Poor Dad started me on that growth journey. This book could be the book that starts you on your growth journey. The next gap that you might not know about is the timing gap. That's when people think it's not the right time to grow. There's a law, it's called the Law of Diminishing Intent, and it says the longer you wait to do something, the greater the odds that you will never do it. So don't wait to get started growing. You can start right now. As soon as you get done with this video, think about what you want to do to start growing, start getting better at whatever you're doing. The mistake gap is the next gap. That just says, I'm afraid of growing. Some people are afraid of making a mistake, so they don't get started. Like I said, I was in the military for 20 years, and I was a little bit comfortable. I was going to stay in the military because I had a fear of failure. I didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what it was. And one day I heard someone say, any day you stay in the military after 20 years, you're basically taking a 50% pay cut. You see, when I came into the military, if you stayed in 20 years, you would get half of your pay as a retirement. So at 38 years old, you could get half of your pay. Well, that got me thinking, and I said, wow, 50% of your pay. So if I stay in, if I got out, I would get 50% of my pay regardless. So they were right. So I stayed in 20 years and 2 days. They got me for 2 extra days. Next is the perfection gap. I have to find the best way I can start growing. Nobody's perfect. My last position before I got the position I'm in now, when I got the position, my boss told me, he said, Chris, we have a lot of paper processes and we need to change those paper processes into some type of electronic process. Now, we didn't have a budget or anything like that. We just had to do it with what we had. Well, we did it. I mean, we changed a lot of processes into electronic processes. Now, was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect. Was it more efficient? Was it more effective when we were done? Yes, it was a lot more efficient, a lot more effective. And those things that didn't work the way we thought they were going to work, we made sure that we continued to work on them until they were working. So nobody's perfect, and don't worry about being perfect. Avoid the perfection gap. Next is the inspiration gap. I don't feel like growing. Now this is a funny one, because I know you've known someone that wants to do something, but they just didn't feel like it. Or is that person you? We have all been there. John Maxwell says the difference between a whiner and a winner is a whiner has to feel good before they do something. A winner does something and then feels good. The right emotions will always follow the right actions. So be a winner and get started. Number 7 is the comparison gap. That means that others are better than I am. Listen, there will always be someone better than you at something. Don't compare yourself to other people. Let me give you an example. I've been blessed to come up in the federal government, and now I'm at a point where my grade, I'm at, let's say, the top 5% of federal employees. And here's the thing. Are there people still that are better than me? Of course there are. Are there people who may not be the same grade as me, maybe a grade or two lower than me, that are better at things than I am? Probably. So don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to the best person you can be and avoid the comparison gap. Lastly is the expectation gap. The expectation gap says, I thought it would be easier than this. My mom would always say, nothing worth having is easy. One of my favorite writers said, don't wish things were easier, wish you were better. Work on getting better. You don't want things to be easy. I made this video to talk about one of the laws that's in the book, the 15 Laws of Growth. I will be teaching that law and the other 14 laws in classes coming up. I'll post more information about that as it goes on. Next week, we'll talk about the second law and look for that video. My name is Christopher Houston. Thank you very much. Good night and God bless.